Hey there, adventurers. I'm Hunter from Mercury Adventure Club, and today we are going to review Bigby Presents Glory of the Giants. Bigby's is the latest expansion from Wizards of the Coast for Dungeons & Dragons, and it was released on August 15th, 2023. It's only been out a couple days, and I've had a chance to dive in. I'm going to tell you right now, though, nobody paid me to do this. I've not been sponsored. I bought this with my own money, and I just thought I'd give a review to you. So let's check out what's inside. To start, there are two different covers for Bigby's Presents, just like all of their other expansions. There's one available to anyone wherever you purchase it, and then there's one variant cover that's available just to folks who purchase their book from their friendly local gaming store. I, of course, always recommend supporting your friendly local gaming store because that's where I started playing, and I've got my favorite. I'm sure you do too. So if you do feel like you're going to pick this up, go to your friendly local gaming store and pick it up there. They'll appreciate the business, and you'll get a nice product in hand right away. The book is organized into 6 chapters, the first of which is going to be primarily for players who are interested in making characters that are influenced by giants, who may have a background with giants, all sorts of things we'll jump into later. Chapters 2 through 6 are primarily for the Dungeon Master, ranging from lore and history of giants to creating a campaign that includes giants or using this information to flesh out a campaign that you're running, such as Storm King's Thunder. Once you get into chapter 4, you have a bunch of maps that can be used for any giant enclave. They're really great looking maps. Chapters 5 and 6 are going to be where a lot of dungeon masters will spend their time, however, because chapter 5 is where you've got all of the magic items that are new to this book, and chapter 6 is the expansive bestiary. We'll talk a little bit more about those as we move forward. Chapter 1 is all about players and what they might do to make a character that is engaging and unique to their playing style and their campaign. Bigby's represents the significant change in Dungeons & Dragons 5e, where they're now going to add feats as part of a background, instead of being a variant human to get a feat right away at character creation, or having a nice GM or DM who says, hey, take a feat at level 1. You can now add a feat with your background, and there are 2 that you can take primarily in this book, with additional feats that you can add starting at level 4 and up. This chapter has a lot of tables, backgrounds, quirks, things that you can roll for to make a character that's engaging. Chapter 2 gets into how to run a campaign with giants. It gives you tips about role-playing giants. It gives you ideas about how to make the giant NPCs in your campaign really come to life. It's a great chapter if you are a GM, especially one who is interested in doing all sorts of roleplay, voices, deep dives into lore. This is a really great way to get that background information that's only talked about in a cursory basis on Storm King's Thunder. You can go in deeper here. Chapter 3 is all about running encounters with giants. You can use tables to create encounters that are engaging with the new monsters that are in the book. It's a great chapter if you are into encounter tables. If you're not, you can easily skip it because, you as a DM, you can totally come up with your own encounters. I believe in you. Chapter 4 includes some very well drawn out maps that are meant to be kind of agnostic in terms of what setting it's supposed to be. You can use these enclave maps for any giant if you choose, with a couple of changes. You can throw it into any existing campaign you have, or you can use it to inspire a brand new campaign. Chapter 5 includes a bit of information about new magic items. We'll talk a little bit about those in a moment, but it is interesting to say that there are a lot of those giant bags that you got in Storm King's Thunder. The characters find a bag, it's filled with a bunch of things. You might have a bell that doesn't have its ringer on it, something like that. But it also includes new magic items that range from rare to legendary. And chapter 6 is the bestiary. It is filled with a bunch of new monsters. Some of them are based on giants you already know and love and just give you a new version. There are also a bunch of creatures that you wouldn't expect. There are fiends that are giants. There are fae that are inspired by giants. There are godlike creatures that get into high CR ratings. And it's really full of a bunch of monsters that would inspire any GM and probably get a few peeks from some of the players who love staring at stats in the monster manual. All right, let's start off with 3 reasons you might want to check out this book. First, there is a lot of lore in this book that allows a deep lore dive that encourages role play in a game that, depending on the party, may have become more combat driven. There is a lot of information in the chapters about the history and culture of giants, including more information about the Ordning, the hierarchy of giants that is introduced in Storm King's Thunder. All of this can be used in the campaign of Storm King's Thunder to make it a more engaging story for your players and perhaps more fun to run as DM. There are also all sorts of tips about all of the giant gods and their priests, which really help clarify enemy or ally motivations if they're featured in your campaign. There are also new options for backgrounds. As I mentioned, feats are going to be part of background starting here, but there are also, in the first chapter, tables and ideas to deepen a character's backstory. Players can use that to make an engaging, interesting character that feels unique to them. There are also tables that include physical marks and quirks, which will also help players and DMs build up roleplay potential. It's always great when you can have a character that you describe visually and all of a sudden everyone is talking about that player's scar and where they got it from. This table would help you decide on what to do, if you so choose. Now, the second reason to check this out is, as I said, the feats. Feats are going to be a part of the background. This is becoming the new normal for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Whether they call it 1D&D or D&D 5.5, whatever they call it, this is going to be the new direction. I chose out a couple of favorite feats that I'd like to tell you about, the first of which is called the Guile of the Cloud Giant. This allows you to, as a reaction, gain resistance to an attack. This is a great feature that you've seen maybe when playing a Goliath character or using some sort of spell that allows you to get resistance. This is just part of the feat. It also allows you to then teleport 30 feet away to add a certain control mechanic on the battlefield. If a player has this, they'd be able to gain an edge in combat. My second favorite is one called the Rune Shaper. This gives a means to cast spells for non-casting classes. The options are varied and good, but the selection can also be changed whenever the character levels up. This means that you've got the Rune Knight fighter class, but you don't have to be a fighter. You can gain that sort of mechanic through this feat. The third reason you may want to check out this book is the bestiary. There are some new great giants to fight. There is a varied bestiary here that ranges from giant creatures, giant-type creatures, and even things like insects and fae. I'd like to tell you about a few of these just to whet your appetite. The first I'd like to tell you about is called the Runic Colossus. This allows the DM to rune a spellcaster's day. It has a reaction called Spell Reflection, which can do damage on the spellcaster whenever they cast a spell. And with a CR of 21, it packs a punch and has some flavor to make for an interesting encounter at higher levels. The second monster I'd like to tell you about is called an Ettin Ceramorph. Ettins are great monsters with 2 heads and 2 distinct personalities. Well, they decided why not also turn this Ettin into an Illithid. Now, I personally love Illithids, and this is a great way to add variety to a giant-themed adventure or to a campaign against Illithids. The monster combines strength-based attacks because of the Ettin, and the trademark intelligence-based attacks of an Illithid, sometimes even on the same turn, making this a very terrifying creature to encounter in some deep, dark dungeon. Now, there are so many other fun options, like I said, ranging from insects to fiends to fey creatures, including better versions of hill giants, which I always felt did not get their due. Hill giants are wonderful, but they never seemed very threatening in the monster manual. But the third monster I'd like to tell you is actually a collection of monsters called the Scions of Giants Gods. They're worth checking out. They're very powerful, they're very imposing, and they could make your higher level party feel like they're taking on worthy opponents. Once you get to level 15, 16, 17, you are feeling rather godlike in your character arc. That means you might as well face creatures like this. As with any expansion, one of the favorite things for players and DMs alike is new magic items. This book doesn't have a lot of magic items, but the ones that it does have seems to respond to the feedback that's been given by players for a long time. I'd like to tell you about 3 of these and why I chose them. The first magic item is called the Adze of Anam. An adze is, if you didn't know, not a sword. That's one critique that's come from 5th edition for a long time, that any magic weapon ends up being a sword. Well, what about those who don't want to use a sword? Well, go ahead and pick up the Adze of Anam. It's an artifact, which is cool, and it also lets the DM choose properties, making it a unique item in any game it appears. And with a +3 to attack and damage rolls, any player who gets it will be grateful, even if it does have, for example, detrimental effects. Now, this is a magic weapon that's not a sword, and if you like that, you'll like number 2, the Lash of Immolation. Who knew that we needed a magic whip in D&D? There's also finally a mechanic to restrain a target with the whip when you make an attack. Now, this does fire damage with embers dancing around the whip's tail, and it evokes images of Wonder Woman or Ghost Rider with their signature weapons. I thought that was a cool addition to the game. Maybe something that would be fit for your campaign. And finally, the third magic item is actually a collection of magic items, the prehistoric figurines of wondrous power. Now, I personally, as a DM, underuse figurines in my campaigns, mostly because I don't want to deal with mounted combat. However, if you're going to have figurines of wondrous power, you can't go wrong with dinosaurs. There are 4 options: a Triceratops, a Tyrannosaurus Rex, a Pteranodon, and a Plesiosaurus. Now, all of these can be used as mounts except for the Tyrannosaurus Rex, so if there was a player that wanted to go ahead and ride a T-Rex like Moon Girl or Moon Boy, well, they're going to have a very generous DM. So how does this all stack up? Is this a play or pass? Well, there are some pros and cons that I'd love to tell you a little bit more about. The pros of this book are it looks great. It's got great art with giants, and all of the AI controversy aside, you will find pictures that will be able to inspire your campaign. There are also blank maps for use. I say blank, they're meant to be agnostic for whatever setting you're using. They look wonderful and could be used in any campaign, especially those with giants. Another pro is that deep dive into the lore. DMs are going to find great hooks and reasons to explore giant kind adventures, and anyone running Storm King's Thunder will use this and make it easier to answer your questions, add depth to your campaign. Storm King's Thunder, of course, is a great adventure, but this could improve it, because what campaign couldn't get better with a little bit more information for the DM? Am I right? One more pro is that official content now is reflecting the new direction of D&D 5e. If you want to get ahead of that, you can start choosing feats as part of the background. There are those engaging feats that I mentioned before, and there are new ways for players to make interesting characters and strong characters. Now, let's talk about the cons. One question when it comes to expansion books like this is it always comes down to, is this for players or for DMs? Now, Chapter 1 is for players, and it does give great options for players. The rest of the chapters are for the DM. Now, there are also players who love lore and would enjoy Chapter 2 as well. Feats stack with each other is another con. This limits their usefulness in my mind. If you have to essentially follow a skill tree, you choose a feat at character creation, and then in order to make that feat even better, you have to wait until level 4 to grab the next feat, but the prerequisite is the one that you grab for your background. Now, these have great flavor, and their resistance to damage types, which is always a great boon, but mechanically speaking, I can't imagine that they will become the most popular feats. One more con is, I would say, with all of the expansion books, it is a small book for the price. The price is on par with every other Wizards of the Coast publication. It is the same standard length that you find in Xanathar's Guide to Everything and Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. It is, of course, a little bit longer than Astral Adventure's Guide, which was only at 64 pages, but this clocking in at 192 pages. It is full of a lot of information, but some people don't like that hefty price tag. Now, it is attractive, and it has good information, and the quality of source books with Wizards of the Coast is known and predictable. Now, most folks wouldn't read a huge tome anyway, so is this a bad thing? it's easily digested with a read through. But my question is, if this book would encourage players to step out of the shadows and into the DM seat, then it's perfect. However, if you're just a player, you may not want to drop the money and maybe just put it towards funding your DM's hobby and throw them a few bucks so that they can get the resource guide to open those options up for your campaign. All told, is this a player pass? I would say for a DM who loves giants, I will be using this book immediately. I'm running campaigns in Storm King's Thunder. I will use these monsters. I'll use some of the ideas. I'll use some of the roleplay tips. I'm also running a campaign in Avernus, and I would love to throw that fiendish giant at my players once they arrive in Hell. What that means for you is all up to you. I would say that it's worth checking out. If you can find somebody who has it, you can ask their opinion. I would say a player pass. Play if you like it. A pass if you're not a DM and you aren't interested in trying. So there you have it, my review of Bigby Presents Glory of the Giants. I hope you enjoyed this video and got some information to help you to decide whether you're going to pick it up or not. If you did enjoy the video, please like and subscribe because I am a new creator. My name is Hunter from Mercury Adventure Club, and I'm hoping all of you have great times adventuring.